Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Big Al Gruswitz. Big Al, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem. I mean, before we, go into what you actually do you want to talk a little bit about where the name Big Al came from?
Well, it comes from the fact that I'm 6'6" and weigh over 300 pounds, and somehow it just fits, you know. And I consider it part of my marketing strategy. I mean, people know who Big Al is more than they know Gruswitz.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because uh, when I see Big Al pop up on my LinkedIn feed or in my messages, I know it's you. If I just saw Al, there's a few Als, that I know. So yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, is working, and it definitely, does help. Is that something that was given sort of as a name in your professional career, or was it like way before then when you was a kid or when you was at like university?
No, it was in my professional life. It just kind of was something that people started calling me, and I just thought, this makes sense. I remember a creative director told me once that had worked with me at an agency, and he was now working at another agency, and the art department manager came around and was asking if anybody knew any good freelance artists, and he said, "Yeah, I know this guy I worked with over at Becker. I mean, I don't know if I know his last name. In fact, I don't know if I ever knew his last name, but all I know is Big Al." And she says, "Oh, I know who that is."
Yeah, I mean, clearly, it does work. So, do you want to start off by talking a little bit about, what you do? Big Al, obviously you've had a long career, so we'll go over all of that. But, what do you do? Like, what's your profession?
Okay, well, my profession right now, and has been for 30 years, is an illustrator in advertising. I specialize in photorealistic 3D and 2D illustration, medical illustration, and what I call difficult retouching. The reason I say that is because a lot of times when I call up, cold call an agency and I mention retouching, they say, "Oh, well, we have our staff people that do our retouching for us." And I said, "Yeah, a lot of places do, but I'm the guy you call when it's the impossible job, the job that goes beyond the capabilities of your staff." So that's the kind of retouching things I got. And then in the last year and a half, I've added AI imaging to my portfolio of stuff that I do.
Okay, so let's just focus on that a little bit. The AI imaging, how is that looking in terms of your workflow and what you do for work? Is it that you're using tools like ChatGPT, Dolly, Midjourney to generate images, or is it something a bit different? Because obviously you talked about retouching, for example. Is it something a bit more specialized for that?
Well, for the retouching, I use the a lot of the AI capabilities in Photoshop. There's some wonderful capabilities there. I started using them when they were in beta, and now they've got more capabilities in beta, but they have most of the stuff in regular Photoshop 2024. And the thing is, to create an image, generate an image from a prompt in Photoshop is, I think, a bit weak. But what it's good at is making changes to the image that you have. So if you people go to my website and go to the retouching section, the first two retouching images, and there's a slider that goes back and forth between the before and after. And those first two were done, I would say, 85, 90% using the AI capabilities in Photoshop. And the thing is, that what you have to do is you do a little piece at a time. You can't just, say I want to get rid of these big rocks on either side of this woman, and then make a scene behind her. You can't do that. So you take and work in little areas at a time and build it up. But as far as AI programs are concerned, I started on Midjourney almost 2 years ago, and version two. And like everybody at the time, I was really enthusiastic about it, and it was natural for me to be enthusiastic about it. I mean, we haven't talked about this yet, but I'm 80 years old, and I'm still working as an illustrator in advertising. It is actually this month 60 years in advertising, and uh, 30 years in my own company doing illustration. But the thing is that I was excited when I first learned to use magic markers. I was excited when I got my first computer and a was signed Apple IIgs, and and then in '94 it was actually '93, I guess it was. Well, we'd like you to do it on the computer, but you don't have to. And by the fall of '94, it was, we really need you to do it on the computer. I had been supervising people using, various Photoshop and Adobe products for 6 years, and so I knew this stuff. So when I got my computer, within 3 months, I had not only proven to myself that I could do what I thought I could do, but I realized that I could do a lot more than most people because of my early art studio background and my drawing capabilities. And I always did things realistically. So, it seems to me that that was why I went into that direction in terms of the illustrations that I offer. And so, anyway, when I got into 3D programs, I got all excited about that. I just love the industry, and I love doing artwork, and I love growing and improving, and getting better and better in what I do. And AI just seemed like a natural thing for me to approach. So I went into it full hog, and I'm posting regularly on LinkedIn. I would say the majority of the posts that I put on are educational because I want people to understand how to prompt, and I want them to have an understanding of what what kind of subject matters you can do and what kinds of terms to use that are going to give you the right kind of effects. I co-authored a book with Brian Sykes on one-word prompts. And the reason for studying one-word prompts is to see what that one word creates when you use it as a prompt. And then once you know that, when you use that word in a longer prompt, you have a better idea of what you're going to get, and you're likely to get what you want and not necessarily something you're surprised about or disappointed in. So that was the reason for looking at one word prompts. And we did a lot of that sort of thing, to begin with. And then there was a lot of, I would, like I said, most of my posts have had the prompt included in it because I'm not protecting my prompts. I want people to understand what works and how to go about doing this and passing on the knowledge that I have. The I guess the thing is, I also teach courses in using Midjourney and other AI programs, and one of I teach to advertising agency creative departments, and I've done that to about 4 different agencies. But the thing that I stress is I think art directors are a natural for prompting because their job requires them to explain to an illustrator or a photographer what exactly they're looking for. and so they have the words, and it's a matter of learning, what order to put them in, because now you're talking to a young bot that doesn't have all the experience that you have, and it may not have references for everything that you want to create, but you have the best likelihood of writing a prompt that's going to work because you're experienced in telling people what it is that you want to produce.
Okay, so these one word prompts. So how do they, work? Like how were you testing them? Because it's one word. Are you literally going on ChatGPT and just putting the word "would" in and
No,
seeing what happens? Or like, what, I'm interested in how that actually works.
no, in Mid Journey to see what kind of visual that word creates. So you put in your forward slash imagine and then the one word. And I don't even put in a dimension, aspect ratio. I just do it square just to see what it's going to produce and see what that gives. For example, golden hour or just some sort of imaginary word or descriptive of the things. Certainly a lot of people will use steampunk or cyberpunk or that sort of thing. Well, you can use that one word. For that matter, you can use emojis for a prompt, but to see what you get with that one word, and I run it usually 2 or 3 times because it varies from image to image in the set of 4 pictures. So once you start getting that, then I will take and write a longer prompt and include that word and see what the results are. And that's what this book is that Brian and I did. The book has uh, it covers both version 4 and 5. It was written a while ago, and it shows what you get with the one word in both of those versions, and then it also shows uh, it in a shorter a prompt with that word included in it, but not a real long prompt, but a prompt that would show how it is affecting the thing. For example, uh, deer's is drinking out of a stream at golden hour, and so you get that kind of an image. So that's basically what the one word prompt study was about, and both Brian and I did a whole lot of that in the first year of working on it back in 22.
Okay, so like, what would you say are the top three takeaways, from that study? Because ultimately, when you're carrying out, some research like that, whether you have a goal in mind of something that you want to learn, or you're open to what you get out of it. Most of the time you're not doing it for the fun of it. You're doing it to get something. So, what was the three key takeaways?
Well, first of all, I think the thing is that you do get an idea of what that word creates, and it is different because of the difference in the different versions. So you'll get, for example, in 4 you might have gotten brighter colors than you did in 5.2 or something like that. The words still work in version 6, but so that's the one thing, is to really understand what that word's going to do. The other thing is where do you place it in the prompt? For example, if it is a descriptive of the subject, like you want to use something like instead of big, you might use gigantic, for example, and so you would apply that to the name of the subject. But if you're talking about atmosphere, golden hour, background, bouquet is another one word that is a photographer's term that has uh, a short focus, and you get those lovely little circles of light in the out of focus background. And so, okay, now that you know that's what you're going to get, where do you apply that? For example, I think it worked well with doing a scene of a rock band in a concert, and use the word bouquet in the background, and therefore you get a picture with the band in focus. You might even have the foreground a little in focus, but the band in focus in the middle, and then these lights that you would have in a rock concert, all little bright circles in the background. And so that's the thing, is just to see where it applies, and then use it. A lot of photography terms, like wide angle or low angle or drone shot or things like long lens or those kinds of things. A lot of people for a while were using specific cameras and specific lens settings and things like that, and you can still do that, but it's not really necessary with version 6 to get all that detailed about the camera settings.
Okay, that sounds. I mean, it sounds very, very, interesting. To say, the least. There's one thing that that you mentioned. It's a big one. It's your age. You said you're in your 80s. You've been working for 60 plus years. You're still going. You're looking into AI now. I know loads of people that are my age. I'm in my 30s. I know people in the 20s, and they're not even looking into AI. They're not like it's gonna be something that sort of just hits them in the face, when it does. But you're at your age and you're exploring it. What's the main motivation for you to still be working at this age where most people want to have been retired for 20 years?
Well, I guess I say it was. I have to first say, how did I get going in this? I mean, um, I was 4 when I decided I wanted to do full color spreads in Life magazine, not articles. I wanted to do ads, and my mother had started teaching me to draw when I was 2, and by the time I was 4, I was doing um, 18 by 24 sheets of charcoal paper with charcoal and with pastels. I was shading, I was doing perspective, I was doing portraits of my parents that looked like them. Um, and I was one of those kids that could be out playing with his friends and all of a sudden get an idea for a picture, and I'd leave my friends and I'd go back home and do a picture. My mother had taken life drawing classes, and I used to, at 4, copy some of her life drawing images. Can't say the legs were always in exactly the right place, but that sort of a inspiration. And so, uh, actually, I can't say there was any serious contender for being an art director. Didn't know what an art director was, but that's what I wanted to be. So I actually, I worked in 2 art studios in Detroit, my hometown, before I worked in agencies. And my first agency job was at Campbell Ewald, working on the Chevrolet account in Detroit. And I had the station wagon account was what I was working on, along with the other people on the team. And I came up with an idea for a station wagon ad that was not an assignment as such, but I came up with this idea, and I thought, this year in 1970, they had 3 different size cars with 3 different types of tailgates. They had the hatchback, hatchback that would come up. They had a door that would disappear into the bumper. They had one that opened sideways one way or the other. And so the idea that struck my head was, if there was only one kind of wagon buyer, we'd make only one kind of wagon. And so I did wrote the headline, and I did a layout, and they liked it so much that they showed it to the client, and the client bought the ad, and it appeared in the original Life, Look, Post, and Automotive News. So early in my career, I met one of my life goals. The second goal was to get to New York. And I wasn't able to do that until '77 because of the downturn in the economy after the Vietnam War. You know, they had instead of borrowing from other countries like they do now, they were borrowing from banks, and the banks were in bad shape. And so when the UAW struck GM in 1970, it just threw the economy all off, and it took 7 years for it to build back up. And that's when I was able to get a job at what was Compton at the time, which became Saatchi and Saatchi. And I worked on uh, Duncan Hines, Tylenol, Co-Tylenol. I worked on U.S. Steel, on New York Life Insurance. I had 11 Procter brands in Canada for a couple of years, and Crisco Oil, Crisco Solid, Ivory Bar, Ivory Liquid, uh, Cascade, Comet, Tide, Perch Shampoo, and so it was and Duncan Hines cakes, brownies, and muffins. I guess that completes the 11, and so I did all that, but because of my OTC experience on Tylenol and also Slim Fast and Dexatrim, I was asked to start the consumer healthcare division at their healthcare company, which was Klempner at the time. That's now Saatchi Healthcare. But I uh, did the new business pitch and won their first account. And then I did the uh, medical, consumer, and international launch of Rogaine. Because this is a podcast and not video, people do not know that I have a shaved head and a beard, and I always say when they see my bald head that I must have been immediately typecast to work on Rogaine. But I just enjoyed all of that and everything. But then I guess what happened was uh, they, I had taken over the consumer health division when the creative director retired. But at the time, I was a senior art director, and I did this for like 6 months. And then they decided that rather than promote me to creative director, which would have been a two position jump, they made me an associate creative director, and then they hired creative people. Well, at that point, I felt like I guess that I wanted to return my career to my hands and my head instead of what other people's opinion was of what I could do. And so at that point, I started looking at the idea of starting a 3D animation company in New York to compete with places like Rhythm and Hues and Industrial Light and Magic out in California. I explored that for 5 years, and I didn't have the money to do it, nor did I get backing. And frankly, at the time, the equipment that was being used was going to soon be out of date. At that time, they were using these big Cray computers to do the actual rendering of things, and you had to have an air-conditioned room for that, and you had to have a computer that spoke to the Cray because the Cray computer worked so quickly, and all of that was replaced when Apple, made computers that had terrific capabilities. And so I'm glad I set a limit and said 5 years. If I can't get it done in 5 years, then I'm living a delusion and not a reality. And so at the end of 5 years, I opted to start going after working freelance and rather than staff. And so that's when I started Boundless Creativity, and in '94, and so it's 30 years this year that that got started. And the reason I did illustration instead of freelance art directing is because I feel like a freelance art director is competing with staff art directors. You're called in when the staff isn't coming up with things. Let's get some more people in here. Let's see what we can come up with. This client's not happy with what we've done so far, and so uh, they don't say, well, here's what we've done so far. No, they say, well, we don't want to influence your thinking on it, so we won't tell you what we've done, but we'd like to see your ideas. So if you come up with something that they've already thought of, they say, oh, we already thought of that one. But if you come up with something that the client buys, then you've made them look bad, and they don't want you around there any longer. Thank you very much for your idea. We'll take over from here. And so by being a illustrator, my job is to make art directors look good. And so my goal is to get into the art director's head, understand what it is they want to produce, keep working as a team member so that everybody is aware of everything as it's progressing, and try to give them something that not only meets their expectations but goes beyond their expectations. So that's what I've been doing for 30 years, and frankly, that's why people still keep coming back to me at 80.
So you mentioned a lot of companies and campaigns that you worked on, some really big names. What are the biggest and recognizable campaigns that you've worked on, and in what capacity, especially if it's something that was very well known?
Well, I would have to say that I mean, Duncan Hines has always had a lot of different uh, commercials, and they change fairly regularly. There was a campaign that was called "The Lady and the Chef," that was a blind taste test of Duncan Hines versus the Chef cake. But that was back long enough that people wouldn't remember it. I think the one that I'm most known for is the Rogaine launch, partly because of the fact that shortly after Rogaine came out, The Simpsons did a spoof of my launch commercial. There was an episode where it starts off with a cartoon version of my launch commercial, and there's a cartoon of the guy looks like the guy in the commercial, and but done in the Simpsons style. And he says, some things are as inevitable as the tide, and that's the first line in the Rogaine non-brand specific ad that ran at the time. And so the rest of the episode starts the episode with the family watching this, and Homer decides he wants to regrow his hair. So the whole episode is about Homer regrowing his hair. My six sons uh, finally realized that their dad had made it because I've been spoofed by The Simpsons.
Yeah, that's definitely a major accomplishment. Having something featured in Simpson. Do you remember what season that was or what episode?
I think it was the second season, and for some reason or other, four comes to mind. I know it can be looked up on YouTube. It's there with if you put in Homer regrows his hair, you'll probably get the link. But
Okay,
yeah, it was a funny episode. So
I'll definitely check that out, and I'm sure the
as
audience
far
will
as
as well.
illustration campaigns are concerned, most of the stuff that I do is for medical ad agencies, and I guess the campaign that I'm most known for in advertising agency circles is the calcium is pharmaceutical agency that specializes in pharmaceutical ads, and so they decided they wanted to use cows in their self promotion ads. And at first we did some retouching of stock photos of cows, but then Stephen Michelson, the now retired but still chairman of the board of the company, uh, decided, here's a test. I don't think we mentioned my company is Boundless Creativity by Big Al Gruswitz. And so Stephen called me one day and he said, I think I've got something that's going to test how boundless your creativity actually is. What I want is a cow standing on its hind legs, lifting a barbell up over its head. So I said, and he wanted it realistic looking. So I did a 3D, I bought a 3D cow model, and then I posed the cow in that position and made the barbell and the big round balls of heavy steel on the ends and everything. Well, from then on, it was all 3D cows. So I've done cows playing guitar, like Pete Frampton. I've done cows riding unicycles while juggling. I've done cows on a starting block. I've gardening. Uh, Riding motorcycles, just all kinds of different things, yoga positions. Actually, one of the things that I did for them was the second time that Lazar's International Archives in Vienna selected some of my work to be in their 200 Best Digital Artists annual, worldwide annual. And This particular thing was there's a magazine called MM&M, Medical Marketing and Media, I think, and so they one year they wanted ad agencies to come up with a record album cover that was indicative of their agency. And so the idea they had was to do a takeoff on the Beatles' Abbey Road uh, album cover. And so, and because it was advertising, instead of Abbey Road, it was Madison Avenue. And we got a stock image of Madison Avenue. And I had to do a lot of cleaning up of, the streets of New York are filled with potholes and extra people and extra cars and stuff. So I did a lot of retouching the background, colorized it so that it was like the images of the mood of the Abbey Road cover. And then I have the walk lines across the street and four cows walking on their hind legs going across the street. And what I did was like John was in the front and he had on a white suit, so I made that the whitest cow with hardly any spots on it. Second one was Ringo and he had on a black suit, and so I did a cow that had the most black spots on it. And then the 3D models were posed in the walking positions. And then to make them even more realistic, I got stock photos of cows' faces and put that on them as well. And anyway, it turned out to be quite an impressive image. And like I said, Lazar selected it, I believe it was in 21, for their 200 best digital artists worldwide. I actually had four of my AI images selected for last year to be in their book of chameleons with bejeweled chameleons with lots of jewels in the places where their little bumps are on the chameleons. But the calcium campaign is something that I'm very proud of, and always tell people I have the cow account.
Okay, and obviously, being in the industry for this long. I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes. One of the tools that you mentioned was Photoshop. How long have you been using Photoshop for, and what are the changes that you've seen in the industry just within Photoshop?
I started in Photoshop version 2, and version 2 did not have layers. So you were basically working like you were on an illustration board, and if you had to change something, you had to erase it and work on that same layer and everything. Best thing that ever happened to Photoshop was the making of layers. So that was a major change. The other thing that I can say is that when I create an image in Photoshop, what I do is anything that a client might want to change is on its own layer. I've seen so many people that work in Photoshop that take and oh, this file's getting so big, and they combine some layers and stuff, and then it makes a mess to try to clean up something that is now combined in these 3 or 4 layers. So I keep everything on individual layers. I actually at one time maxed out the number of layers that you could have on a file because of the complexity of the thing that I did. But it goes far beyond that now. I don't think there's a real limit on it. And of course, we've now got the uh, Photoshop large, files that you can save, and that makes a big difference. And then this last year and a half, the addition of the AI capabilities. They've been moving stuff that they first started doing in Firefly into Photoshop Beta, and then into Photoshop itself. And uh, one of the things that for years, there's been uh, ways of doing an automatic silhouetting of something. It has never been good enough as far as I was concerned. I would much rather take the time to go in and to draw a path in close. I usually enlarge the thing about 4 times up and go in there and really do a tight silhouetting around the object. When it comes to hair, I'll go outside of that, and then I'll use a color select to remove the background from around the hair, so you keep a nice soft look to the hairs. But the latest capabilities of silhouetting in Photoshop are really quite exceptional, and they still aren't exactly perfect. But the thing is, you can save a whole lot of time by starting with that silhouette and then go in and make your little adjustments to the areas that just need clicking up a little bit. But that's been, the Photoshop's been a phenomenal tool, and I must say, Adobe, with their corporate ego of wanting to be the best in the industry, have really lived up to that. And I think Illustrator and I immediately switched to InDesign when they came out with that, because I was working in Quark, and I not only didn't like Quark, I didn't like the management of Quark and their attitudes about what their program was going to be or what it wasn't going to be. And so I quickly moved into InDesign, and it had capabilities that Quark didn't have. And finally, Quark had to give in and start doing improvements to their product. But yeah, Adobe's key to my career, in terms of stuff. Even when I work in 3D, um, a lot of people are the kind of people that they want to perfect everything in the 3D program. They'll take and work for hours to get everything exactly right in the 3D program. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm a commercial artist, and if I can do something quicker and better in Photoshop rather than spending hours trying to perfect it in the 3D program, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'll render things in 3D, and then I will bring them into Photoshop and do whatever modifications I need to do there. Besides, my clients always want to have a layered Photoshop file, and so you can't just give them a flat 3D image and say, there it is, because they're going to make changes and stuff like that too.
Okay, so you've been using Photoshop for a long time now, and one of the sort of you know things that has divided a lot of users is the one-off fee versus it being a software as a service. Obviously, right now you pay a monthly fee, you get the latest version instead of being able to pay a pretty large fee as it used to be, but you would get the software. And I know people that are running on pretty old Photoshop, but for their needs, it's more than enough. Like, what's your take on that? The one-off fee which has been scrapped versus a software as a service.
Well, it used to be that you could buy Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign all individually, and it was on your computer and it worked. And you didn't you could skip a year or two of updates because you didn't have to. Uh, it didn't stop working. They had to keep their income going, and so they've added that. I guess I don't particularly like the fact that I have to pay for the whole Adobe suite, that includes a number of programs that I don't use. But this is my business, and I certainly make enough money with the programs to merit having those, even if I'm not using them all. But the other thing that I'm paying for is Adobe's uh, uh, 3D Adobe Substance, Dimension, 3D Painter, and 3D Sampler and 3D Stager, all Adobe Substance, four different programs in that. And I have that suite of four programs I'm paying for, and I haven't used them a whole lot. Um, but it's worth having it on hand whenever something comes up that the a client needs something, and those programs will provide me with what I want. I guess the big thing in terms of why I don't use them as much is because I if I can buy a model, it saves time, it saves the client money, and I will buy a model usually from Turbo Squid. They have phenomenal models. But I also work in DAZ Studio, so I started with Poser, but DAZ Studio was a huge improvement over Poser. And there was uh, and posable figures are really something that is important in using in DAZ Studio. I did 33 3D dinosaurs for the Discovery Channel's Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs about 12 years ago, and I there was six models, six different dinosaurs that there were not existing models of them. But I knew that this fellow in, of all places, Baltic, Estonia, uh, who goes by the name of Dino Roll, makes fantastic dinosaur models. So I hired him to make six dinosaur models specifically for that job, and got them. So we got those things done, and all of my 13 grandkids have a copy of Grandpa's dinosaurs and the dinosaur encyclopedia.
So, what other main tools do you use as part of your workflow? Obviously, you've talked about some of them already, and obviously, you know it, appears that Adobe is a big part of it. But what are some of the other tools? And going beyond the sort of artistic tools as you run your own business, and you're managing clients, managing projects. What tools are you using for like project management, for example, and communication, and note taking, and that sort of thing. Especially because you've been around for a long time. You've tried a lot of things out. You've probably come to a conclusion of a set of tools that work really well for you.
Well, in terms of the 3D programs, I do work in Blender, ZBrush. I work in, like I said, Dev Studio. But my main rendering I've been doing in Vue, VUE, which is a 3D program that was basically meant for creating 3D landscapes and realistic stuff. And Industrial Light and Magic and all the other companies out in California use that, and you can uh, uh, do that. But they have been having problems. They were sold to a French company that bought them about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just got word last month that they are going out of business. So uh, instead of paying an annual fee like I've been doing with them, um, they now have released a final version that you can have on your computer as long as it works with the system. And also, they have a plant factory program that creates different kinds of plants, and they have a plant library with all different plants and everything. So I'll continue to use that as long as I can. But again, I mean, I'm 80, so I don't know. I don't know how many more years I'm going to be doing this, but I have no plans for ending at this point. As far as other programs are concerned, uh, uh, one of the things about AI images, even when you upscale them, they are not necessarily to the size that you want to use for a print purpose. And so I use On One Photo Raw. It's now On One Photo Raw 2024 that has much better job of enlarging images than enlarging it in Photoshop, because it has for years used fractals to do the enlargements, and you can go 6, 7, 800 times up in size. Um, but it now uses both fractals and AI to create their images, and there's lots of different things that you can do with that. They have uh, a On One no noise program that is part of the On One suite, but it reduces noise in pictures and sharpens them up, and it does a nice job. I've been doing some music videos lately using Udio for the music, and then editing in CapCut, and and then uh, I've also used DID for avatars. Speaking, you give them an image of the picture, and then give them the script, and it'll the avatar will then speak the words, lip sync with it, and blink the eyes occasionally, and that sort of thing. So I've combined those sort of things together in videos. Some of the music videos I've done, I've written the lyrics for it. Others I've let the program write the lyrics, but tell them the type of music I want, and what kind of voice and instrumentation I want. As far as the business side is concerned, I'm my big tech thing on keeping track of things with clients is I have a notebook next to me, and I take notes as I'm talking to the client, and I write it down, and I have stacks of these notebooks that I've filled with notes from people, and I basically can go back a few pages back to see what I was doing at one place and what I had written, and I do use uh, the Mac, uh, pages and numbers and Keynote. I use Keynote a lot for putting PDFs together to post on LinkedIn because you can use that to go full screen. As far as the business side is concerned, even there, I used to use a bookkeeping program, but now I just keep everything in numbers, do spreadsheets for the year.
Okay. And do you ever get any? Obviously, you've only been using AI in your work for about what, a year and a half, so not that long. But do you ever get any pushback for using AI, either from a client or from other, artists that you just generally know, and they're like, that's not, proper art, or something along those lines.
Um, I actually had a guy comment on one of my posts this weekend that made a kind of a snide little comment about what kind of art is that if all you're doing is saying prompting scary tree because it was one of the guys in Germany, Alexander, that does a Saturday monster challenge, and these were like monster trees that were coming to attack you. Um, and so I just very nicely said to him that I don't know what the results would be if I put in scary tree as my prompt, because here's the prompt that I used, and I went into the detailed explanation of what's there. And I said to the guy, maybe you should try it, and he wrote back, I tried it once and I found no satisfaction in it. And he is a guy that does uh, film coloring and various other art jobs that he does. But I left it at that because there's no point in going on and saying what a lot of people are saying is that if you're not up to date on what's happening with AI now, you're going to be left behind. As far as clients are concerned, um, I have explained to clients about the fact that at this point, your client can't copyright an image, and what I say to them is, let's say you take and you are presenting some layouts to the client, and the client looks at it and says, "That's great. I love it. Let's go with this. I love that image. Let's do that. Let's do that." And you say to them, "Well, the thing you have to understand is this was done in AI, and you really won't be able to copyright this image." And what I say to them is, then your client's going to say to you, "Then why did you show it to me?" You know, and what's happening is AI is progressing and people are learning AI faster than the government is able to take and resolve these various legal issues. And what I find is that I'm regularly getting asked to use AI in programs. I did a project, was a project for Calcium, and what it was the art director had created a series of medical vials that contained different allergens like strawberries and mold or grass and milk or that sort of thing in these vials, and he did it on a black background. And so uh, what he needed me to do once he had this image that the client had bought for an ad, and it was like 6 vials in a row, Anyways, what they needed me to do was to do 15 different sets of allergens in vials, but they not only wanted it on the black background, they wanted it in a vial that was not just on a white background, but it was a transparent vial. So the glass, you had to look through it and be able to put any color background behind it. And so what I did was I bought a 3D vial model, and then using ZBrush, I modified that model to be the same proportions as the vial in their black background image. And then I did these uh, 15, no, it was 18 sets of different allergens, um, and had to place them both in a vial that was a black background, and also place them in the one that was a transparent bottle that they could have whatever background they wanted. So I had to silhouette the white the vial in the white background, but then I had to uh, mask out certain areas that would have been transparent on that vial, and then put the stuff inside it. So that was a thing where the allergens were all created using Midjourney, and so uh, I used 3D, Midjourney, and Photoshop to put this whole set of 18 uh, two vials in each, all together. So I get that kind of project. Uh, and one more client to mention was they had a client that wanted to do something in 3D, but their lawyers said that they should only use either Firefly or Getty as the capabilities of doing AI imaging. Well, let's take a look at what I found out about Getty. What I found out about Getty was that they were going to charge. First of all, you couldn't just start doing it. You had to go through a demo with somebody and find out how to do it, and find out if you were going to be willing to pay for their charges for it. What it amounted to was they wanted to charge per prompt, and each prompt was going to cost I think $3.20. And so every time you modified that prompt, that was another $3.20. And that doesn't sound all that bad, except they wanted you to buy a minimum of 1,000 prompts at a package. That means you're spending $3,200 upfront before you've ever done anything in it. So I don't know how they're going to be able to do that, because you can do it still at this point free and with Firefly, but also you can do images. Adobe is using their stock images for their input to their AI program, and so is Shutterstock using their stock images, and they're basically charging the same thing as they would for their stock images. If you wanted to buy 5 stock images from Shutterstock, it's going to cost you, I think, something like $63 with the tax added on for 5 pictures. Then they're charging the same thing for if you go in and generate something. So I don't see how Getty's going to be able to compete with that the way they're looking to do it. But anyway, I did the job for the client using Firefly to create the images. They were absolutely delighted with it. Was working also in Photoshop to do, along with it. I was actually using Firefly in Photoshop beta at the time that I was doing the images, but then using the Photoshop capabilities of retouching and everything else. So the client was just delighted with the results, and it ended up that I got two more jobs out of the results of that first one, and there was no changes in the first one.
So right now, what sort of projects are you, working on? Is it predominantly just, heavy AI, or is it just a mixture or more, traditional stuff? And do you only just predominantly do, projects in advertising, or have you, ventured out as well in the past?
No, my clients are all advertising agencies. They doing the dinosaurs for the Discovery Channel was an outlier. I prefer to work with art directors because they know what I'm doing and they how to go about doing it, and they know what they're asking for and everything. And I find that much better than working with a manufacturer that is asking for something. Although I've done some of that, but uh, uh, some of the stuff I've done with corporations, I've actually worked as their art director and probably copywriter as well, and produced that. But that was back a ways. Now it's like all ad agencies are the clients, and the what I found this year is that job I was just talking about with the allergens. That was done this year, back in January and February, and I was very, very busy in January and February with work. Then it's tapered off. I also have taught, like I said, four different agencies uh, how to use AI and Midjourney, somewhat into Musavir and Photoshop AI capabilities, and I'm actually finding that I'm getting less comp work to do because I've taught them how to do it. But that's okay. I don't. They still come to me when they're stuck with something, and also still doing finished art. But most of what I've been doing this year has been photo retouching, and most of that has involved using the AI capabilities along with the regular Photoshop capabilities. So it's been like I said, it's been a little spotty this year. I suspect that companies are being a little cautious about what they're doing this year in terms of their what they're spending on advertising. I think things are a little bit slow for everybody because it's an election year, and they don't know what's going to happen in November with the choices of presidential candidates we have. So I suspect that that's what's happening. Is it's slowed down because of it's a wait and see sort of situation.
So you mentioned that you obviously are freelance and you've been doing freelance work, for a long time. How was that, transition, going from, regular style employment to, freelance, and what, really sort of actionable advice would you give to someone that wants to do freelance work? Because unlike a regular paycheck, you'll have good months, you'll have bad months, you'll have short projects, you'll have long projects. How do you navigate that?
At the beginning, it drove me crazy. Um, at the beginning, I felt like I was either working or unemployed. If working, if I had a project in house, if I didn't have it, I was I was unemployed. And I used to say, happiness is knowing on Friday that you've got work on Monday, because then you don't spend the whole weekend worrying about is anything going to come next week. What I basically had to do is change my vocabulary. Uh, my vocabulary is either that I'm either making money or I'm selling or I'm doing bookkeeping or whatever, but I'm always working. And once I came to that realization, it was much more acceptable. I still like to know on Friday that I got work on Monday, but the way things go is you're available literally 24/7. I mean, I've had clients call me up at 11 o'clock Sunday night wanting to know, can we talk at 8 o'clock in the morning about a project? Um, but you can go through you're available always. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you don't have any work come in. And then Thursday afternoon or Friday, client calls you up and says, Al, is there any chance that you could do this over the weekend? Because we got to have this for a new business pitch on Monday. And you say, of course, sure you will, because hey, you didn't work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so of course you'll work Saturday and Sunday. You know, so I mean that's the reality of working freelance. But the thing is that I fill in time with doing stuff on LinkedIn, doing experimenting with the AI programs. I primarily work in Mid Journey. I like Musavir a lot, and I've done work with uh, uh, DALI 3 in Bing, and then there's FixGen that is really set up for people that don't know a whole lot about prompting, because they provide a lot of buttons that you can choose for different aspects of the prompt. But um, they have Midjourney and DALI 3 and also Stable Diffusion, all in their suite of programs that you can work with. And they'll even do some writing of prompts or rewriting of prompts for you if you want. Um, I have worked in that because we actually had the guy that started that program comes fairly regularly on our Friday, the main event that we host every week. Me and Sandhu Bachu and a few other members of the team, and so he's come on the show quite regularly and gives us updates on that program and everything. Actually, this last Friday, the co-founder of Musavir came on the program and was talking about this first place award they got in startup business for this year. And we had him come on because uh, he was actually on the main event with us uh, as he was launching Musavir. A number of us had been working in beta before the launch, and he really considers us kind of partners with him in the program. So he was very happy to come on with us. We spent the whole hour basically talking about Musavir and where it's going and what improvements they're going to have coming up. But they have they have Arslan has maintained a presence on LinkedIn and with Musavir uh, users to really be tuned in to what we're looking for. If you can contact them and you can say, this is what I think you ought to do to improve it. For example, his avatar that you can create, where you can put in a picture of yourself or anybody else, and can be consistent with the avatar through different images. That was something that we worked with him on early on, and one of the things that I've said to him is, I would like not just a consistent avatar, I would like consistent cast. I'd like to be able to say, there's 3, 4 people, be consistent from image to image with the same hairdos, with the same clothing, until I program in that I want to change that. And he was talking about they're going into video, and they're going into text or image into 3D models, polygon models. So those are the two things he's working on now.
So have you ever, had this, because obviously you're doing freelance work, had the situation where, clients not paying? And, you mentioned a situation where, they ring you and they're like, Big L, can you, do this for tomorrow or for in a couple of days? We really need it for a presentation. And are you only doing that for clients that you worked with before? So, like they're, legitimate, or would you do that for a client that you haven't yet, let's say, received money for previous projects, so you're a bit unsure?
I have had that happen only once in 30 years. Um, uh, I do get new clients every year, and um, and I have two or three agencies that come to me quite regularly. But uh, the one time it happened was it was a New York agency, and they were in trouble because they had lost some accounts, and I had done a substantial amount of work for them that I hadn't been paid for, and I kept asking them nicely to pay it and everything, and they were not doing it, not doing it. So the internet is a source where you can find just about anything you want to find out about. So I knew the client that they had worked for, and I was able to find out who the marketing manager was on that brand. And so I wrote to the creative director and the president of the agency, and I said, I have been very patient. It's been 3, 4 months, and I haven't gotten paid. And so here's the deal: um, pay me this week, or I will write to this man that I mentioned his name, that was the marketing manager, and inform him that his agency is not paying their suppliers' bills. I got a call. You haven't sent anything yet, have you? No, I haven't. Well, we're putting a check in FedEx. You'll get it tomorrow morning. And that's how I got paid for that. Of course, I didn't get much work from them after that, but you know what? That didn't matter because there was plenty of other clients.
I mean, that's obviously, good to hear that it hasn't been, very frequent. It's just happened once with, a client, because that's always a, concern when somebody's going freelance, also an issue that you have to deal with, clients, messing you about like that. But if not the money side, have you had any stories where clients have messed you about, or you've had trouble clients, and you're just thinking this just isn't worth the money? How problematic this client's been.
Um, every once in a while, a client will say to you, "Well, I don't have a lot of money on this. Can you do the job for such and such amount?" And yeah, you've been working with them and everything, and I try to be flexible on the costs, and uh, the usual thing that they will say is, well, we'll make it up to you on the next job. Well, that never really happens, but that's all right. I will get jobs from them that are paying well. So to do something that I normally would have charged, like um, let's say uh, $4,000 for it, and they have $1,200. Okay, I'll do it for the $1,200 because if they do sell it, they'll come back to me for the finished art anyway. So that doesn't bother me. The only thing that I had happened that I wasn't happy about was I had most of the time, I have to explain, most of the time what happens is I will give them an estimate, and then they will approve the estimate. And then when the job is done, I will bill them an invoice that is for that amount. The only time that will change is that if the parameters of the job is changed such that it was not those parameters were not included in the original estimate, and I may come back to them, and I do that sometimes where the job is just expanded out beyond because of their client's request and everything, and so they usually are agreeable to an additional amount. Usually a little bit of back and forth on it, but that's okay. That's part of the business. But I had a situation once where the art director told me, I said, "No, what's the budget on the thing?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know, keep it under $10,000." Okay, so I had that in mind. So I did the job, and I did come in under $10,000. And the client was perfectly happy with the job. The agency was happy with the job, very happy with all the images that were created. And then I got a call from the art department manager saying, I know what you're going to say about this, Al, but the creative director asked me to ask you if you could bring your price down. It turns out the account exec never put in that the budget was $6,000. And I said, you're right. You know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, no, I am not going to reduce the price down because you bought the stuff. Everything was approved by you and everything was just fine. And this was not by anything that I had done. This was an account exec's mistake. So if you want somebody to pay for it, have the account exec pay for it. Well, I did. I got my full pay for the job and on time, and I still do work with the agency because they know that I have done a whole lot for the agency over the years to be very helpful to them. For example, uh, I will frequently tell an agency if I'm doing a job for them that's their self promotion. For example, the cows at Calcium. Um, I will do those cows at my comp rate, not my finished art rate, because it helps them to grow their business, and by their growing their business, they'll be sending more business to me. So it's like a partnership with them to try to help them to succeed. So that's something that I will do. But generally speaking, the agencies are very good, and I've really never had any issues of needing to have a debt collector or anything like that.
I mean, that would definitely be an interesting scenario having to, use a debt collector. Obviously, it would have to be, at what size of a job would you say it's, worth, doing it? Would you say if it was $1,000 job, you would do it? It would have to be like $5,000, $10,000 job.
It would be probably 10,000 or more.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, I can eat $1,000 job. That's not a problem. But the thing is that it doesn't happen. It just they're in business. They're successful businesses, uh, and generally speaking, they're very very accommodating. And I've worked with agencies where the people in the finance department were just really pro suppliers. I mean, like if it was a job that was being done for the agency, and not for one of their clients. Um, they'll and I usually put 30 days on the bill, um, and they'll pay me within 2 weeks, sometimes within a week of I've done the job, because the people in the bookkeeping department know me and know that this is coming out of the company's money. So why wait 30 days for it when I can pay them right now? It's a good business.
So how do you, again, you've had a lot of success in your career. You had a lot of, larger clients. Obviously, I'm sure you started off smaller, the smaller clients, not as much money, and now you're getting like these larger clients. And that's always, I'll say, the goal for most people that want to do freelance work is to get to those, bigger clients, the ones that, you do one or two, and then even if you have a bit of a break, it's not that big of a deal as well. So how do you go about getting the larger clients? Like, what are some tactical steps for somebody that's doing freelance to get those clients that, instead of paying a few $100s or maybe even $1,000, they're paying $10,000, $20,000, for a project. And then to you, as an, again, just to confirm, your company, is it just you or do you have employees as well?
No, it's just me.
Just you. So to an
And
individual then.
yeah, but the thing is that uh, up until the fall of '97, I was freelancing on premises with different agencies, and uh, I had a good reputation as an art director in the industry to begin with. So when I was working freelance, a lot of people know me. Again, Big Al. I mean, uh, when I was working freelance at Becker, and I did that for like 6 years, and there was a lot of people that worked at Becker that would come in and work. And at the time, literally, I was working 70 to 80 hours a week at Becker. And I was sleeping on a couch in one of the offices 1 or 2 nights a week. It was just that much work that they wanted me to do. And I lived 2 hours from the city in the northwest corner of New Jersey at the time. And it got to the point where there wasn't enough time to go home and sleep and come back around back to work. So I'd stay overnight in the agency, and I was known for doing that in a number of different agencies. But at Becker, because I worked more hours there than anybody else, and I'm a bit of a social butterfly anyway, so anytime anybody would come to work in the agency, I would go over to their office and say, "Welcome to Becker. My name is Big Al Gruswitz, and I'm not on staff here, but I work freelance and I work more hours than anybody else does. So I feel I have a right to welcome you to Becker." And then when they people left the agency, I would go over to them and say, "Well, I wish you well. I hope that everything goes well in your new job. Here's my business card, and remember Big Al." So anyway, uh, and then the fact that my work has been selected by the reserves 3 times. Uh, and everything. I get work because of my reputation. I have a lot of people that close to 6,000 people that follow me on LinkedIn, which is not nearly as large as some of the people on LinkedIn, but a great number of them are clients or potential clients, and uh, I will get comments and likes and stuff from different people that are not AI people but are agency people, and so I'm out there all the time, and that's the primary way I sell myself now, and I have a uh, after. Um, Last year, I was so busy that I just realized I did not have time to redo my own website again. And I had done it 3 times before. And so I decided to hire a company to do the website. And I was heavily involved in art directing the site, being very nicely demanding of them in terms of, because what I told them was every square inch of this website has to reflect the quality of my work. Otherwise, it's not up to the quality that it should be. So I'm very pleased with the website that I have right now, and send people to it all the time. If I get somebody that connects to me on LinkedIn, I usually will send them a private message and ask them to take a look at the site. Um, and if there's clients that I haven't worked with for a while, I might send them a message and say, uh, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at my site in the last 6 months, but uh, it's totally different, and I'd like you to take a look at it, and do that sort of thing. I used to advertise in Director of Illustration, and their medical source book is also one of their books, and I used to be in those books. And sometimes when I had a rep, they would pay for their 30%, their commission for the ad. But um, I never got a big enough job from advertising those books to pay for one job, or one a job big enough to pay for one page in the book. And so the thing is that I just stopped doing that. I have a rep in Portugal who used to work with me when he was in New York working with this other rep agency, and he still reps me. And whenever want to be in director of illustration, I tell him, no, I'm sorry, I don't pay for that anymore. I just it's a waste of my money. So he'll usually give me like a little eighth of a page on one of his pages, but he also will put my samples on Director of Illustration in a gallery of my work, and regularly updates that. On his site, he has two galleries for me, one for my 3D work and one for my AI work. And I'm regularly uh, providing him with newer, updated images for him to change the images periodically.
So, what are some of the main lessons learned over the last 60 years in the ad industry? And somebody, obviously, like you were saying, from a very young age, from 4 years old, you had a clear idea what you wanted to do. That helped shape your future. If there's other people listening, they're like, I know what I want to do. I want to get into art. I want to, get into the ad industry as well. Especially with the way a lot of that's changed with a lot of it being heavily online, and now with AI, virtual reality and the metaverse and all that. Like, what's your lesson learned and advice for people?
Well, I didn't mention my education. I did have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Advertising Design, and I have a Master's in Mass Communications and TV Production. So the education is important, although that's not what's going to get you the job. What gets you the job is a portfolio. And so you have to have a portfolio that reflects the quality of the work that you're doing at that time. Uh, I used to take my portfolio and spread it out on, when it was all actual individual pieces, spread it out on the floor in the living room and look at it all, and then uh, say, this piece over here does not reflect the level that I'm at now. That's out of the portfolio. And I revised my portfolio many times to get the job in New York. Um, and I was working in upstate New York in Rochester at the time at Hutchins Y&R. And I at one time had uh, my actual portfolio and three slide portfolios rotating around in New York, uh, all handled by a delivery service. And every once in a while, when I got somebody that was interested in seeing me, I would go into New York and take and while I was there, call up other agencies and try to get more appointments while I was there. Um, I think that the main lesson that I'm talking about in that is you have to present yourself at the level that you're at right now. And if that means you have samples that are not up to where your capabilities are right now, then you got to have more samples. You got to take the time to produce them. And the other thing is, you know, in terms of getting a job in an agency, um, it's their ballpark, and they make the rules, and they know what they're looking for, and it's up to you to prove to them that you are capable of doing that. I was a car man as far as New York was concerned because I worked on Chevrolet. Then I was working in a couple of smaller agencies in upstate New York during that recession time in the early 70s. And uh, so, I go into New York and they say, well, do you, we could probably get you in on a car account because, you're a car man. But I said, yeah, but I want to work on package goods and, and TV. And so I had to prove myself by making a portfolio that showed that I could do that. And so that's one thing. As far as my work now is concerned, and why am I still working, and why am I still having fun doing it? It's because um, I guess it's best explained by something. One time I had a fifth grade class in Buffalo, New York, interview me. They had the teacher gave an assignment to go to the director of illustration and pick out an illustrator that you would like to write to and ask questions about their art. And uh, just so happened, three of the students in the class selected me. So I wrote back to each of the three, and I also sent them like 18 by 24, not quite that large, 13 by 17 prints of the pictures that they had asked about. I sent them color prints of those along with my response to their letter. So I was talking to the teacher, and I said, if you'd like to have them ask me questions, we could do a Zoom call. And so we set that up. And this one girl, each kid would come with a little question on a piece of paper, sit down in front of the computer, and read the question to me. One girl said, "What's the best illustration you've ever done?" And I said, "That's easy. The next one." And that's how I've always approached things. That the next thing I do has got to be the best thing I've ever done.
So, in terms of like the portfolio, you say, you got to grow that, you got to add, obviously, more projects, to it. Does it matter if those projects are real or fake? And what I mean by that does it matter if it's a project for an actual client, or does it matter if you're like, okay, I'm gonna, replicate this, I'm gonna, try and do it, but it's obviously not a live project where I'm getting paid. I'm just, doing it for the portfolio. So you say, does it matter if it's a project for the portfolio or a project for an actual client which you then put in the portfolio in terms of your experience with clients? And then, like, do you tell them, do you not tell them, and do they know, do they pick it up or pick up on that or not?
Yeah, let's start with early portfolios for a second. Uh, Depending on the school that you go to for college, um, student portfolios generally look like student portfolios because they're filled with things that are obviously assignments, projects they've been told to do, and they look like that. So I have always urged people to put more things into their portfolio that shows what they would like to do and not what the teachers ask them to do. As far as my portfolio is concerned, I have always put both projects that I've done for clients and projects that I've created, for the portfolio. Um, when I to get my job in New York in '77, uh, my wife thought I was obsessed at the time because I would go to work, come home at quitting time, and we'd have supper with the our young boys, and then we'd get them into bed, and then I'd go back to the office at night and work on my portfolio for till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and did that a lot. And one of the things that I felt was there was no writer in that I was working with that I thought was good enough to work with to come up with the portfolio I wanted to put together. So I wrote my own copy. I actually even wrote uh, marketing strategies for some of the stuff. Um, and my approach was, uh, well, if you like the copy, that's great. Um, uh, but if you don't like it, well, I'm an art director. I'm not a writer. But generally speaking, people like the stuff I wrote. In fact, the first job I was offered in New York was actually as a writer, and then he found out I was actually an art director, and I didn't take the job because it was in a sales promotion agency. But the thing is that I would do campaigns in my book, and I would put in uh, TV commercials and ads and single page or spreads and I didn't usually include anything like sales pieces or anything like that in it, but general feeling of what the campaign was like with a series of ads and maybe a TV commercial or two. And things are different now because everything's all digital, and so my portfolio is really my website. And so, why did I want to change my website last year? Is because A, the site looked dated, and B, I had a lot more stuff, including AI, I wanted to incorporate into the site. So now my site has 7 galleries of AI images. It's got 6 galleries of 3D illustrations, one of 2D illustrations. There's a storytelling section. Shows putting together basically storyboards or storytelling with the images. Some of them are animated. I did a thing with taking the words of Simon and Garfunkel's "Sound of Silence" and use them as the prompts, taking each of the 4 verses and using them individually as prompts. And then the pictures were generated in Midjourney, and then I assembled them together with the soundtrack of Simon Garfunkel's song. And uh, so that's one of the things in the storytelling section. And then I have a retouching section with the before and after images with the slider that goes back and forth. I also have a blog, and I will put some of the posts that I do on LinkedIn in the blog. And then there's a section about courses that I teach and the 2 books that I've co-authored with Brian Sykes. So it's a rather heavy, besides an about section about me and boundless creativity. So it's quite a heavy portfolio and quite a heavy website. I also have a virtual gallery on spatial. and you can take your avatar and walk around, and that's divided up. In on one side is AI stuff, and the other side is 3D stuff. So, that's how I sell myself now and the kind of portfolios I put together. When I do a resume for somebody, it's usually a summary resume rather than going into 60 years of details. So,
It's
yeah,
more the highlights, effectively. Then I
yeah,
guess.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Obviously, you've had the element of a lot of time, a lot of experience, and a lot of clients, and a lot of work. So you have to, condense it. There'll be people out there that may have only done it for 5 years, but they still might have a lot of, projects on their portfolio, whether they're projects for actual paying clients or whether they, started their portfolio initially predominantly just through personal projects just to grow the portfolio. Like Big Al is saying, it gets to a point where you probably have a bit too much, and obviously depending on, I'd say, the type of projects that you're doing, the industry that it's in, you'll have to try and determine how much is too much. But you'll have to start culling the herd. You'll have to start reducing it and be like, okay, those personal ones that I did, even though they might have a bit of an emotional attachment, they're going to have to be omitted, or some of them will have to be omitted on the portfolio. Again, that doesn't mean you're deleting them like off, your Google Drive or on your GitHub or, your personal storage. It just means you're just not highlighting them because, like Big L said, it's really a matter of like the highlights, that are there. And so this, website of yours, did you make that yourself, programming, or did you use a platform online like Squarespace, or did you hire someone to do that
I
for you?
hired a company in India actually that put it together and supervised them through doing the thing. I provided them with all the images, and the opening homepage starts with an animated quick cuts of a mix of AI and 3D images, and I put that together using Photoshop and provided that to them. And I guess because of the variety of stuff that I do, that's why there's so much stuff in the site. But like if somebody is interested in retouching, I might just send them to the retouching gallery and say, while you're there, if you want to look at so and so, you can do that. But here's the retouching gallery. Or if they're looking at something in terms of 3D and they want something that's a medical, I can send them to the medical illustration gallery, or the gallery I call medical advertising images. It's stuff that's done to sell a product, and so it's not necessarily a medical illustration as such, but it's a concept that gets illustrated to demonstrate or amplify a certain concept about the product.
And how was the experience, working with a company, over in India? Obviously, the language differences, the time differences as one. How costly was that outsourcing it over there?
Uh, I again, I mean, it's a matter of, like I said, I'm available 24/7. So like with people in India, I had to, I think there's like a 10.5 hour difference in time, and but they were available. They were available on LinkedIn with any time that I wrote, and it didn't really matter too much about when it was. The guy seemed to respond very quickly, and they would send me stuff to look at, and then I would make my comments, and sometimes I would provide them with a visual placement of things that because of something that wasn't working in the way they'd put it together. But clients, I'm working with, like I did the dinosaurs with people that were doing the project for the Discovery Channel. They were located there, like you, over in London, and then you've got clients on the West Coast, and there's a 3 hour time difference and stuff. My rep is in Portugal, so he's like 5 hour difference. You just work with it. That's all. It doesn't matter.
So that's all the questions I've got for this podcast, Big Al. Obviously, I want to thank you for coming on. But before we wrap up, one thing I always do is a rapid fire round of sort of fun, you know almost like non-career get to know you questions. Are you ready for them, Big Al?
Sure.
Okay, first one. I mean, it's kind of relevant because you run your own company. You're part of the company. It's just you only. The question is, would you rather run a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company? Or let me flip it. Would you rather run a 110 or 1,000-person company if you had the choice? Because obviously you haven't hired more people, but you're doing well. So, like, which one would you? I think I can guess which one, but then why as well?
Well, I like working by myself. Excuse me. I like having the one-on-one with the clients, and um, when I have been busy, for example, when I was doing the dinosaurs, I actually hired my youngest son to do some retouching because I had taught him how to do photo retouching, and he did an excellent job on it. And then I either had to click things up. There's another son that worked for me for a little while, doing layouts and some illustrations and stuff. So I've done that sort of thing, but I've never had enough work to uh, hire a staff. There is a guy I've worked with 2 or 3 times now, um, who, believe it or not, is in the Ukraine, and he is a spectacular 3D model maker, and so um, I like working with him, and again, there's a time difference there, but it's all worked out, and he's made wonderful models for projects where uh, I can do very organic model making and stuff like that, but he's great for mechanically accurate and correct uh, models, and so that's what I hire him for. As far as uh, having a large company is concerned, um, I don't think I've ever really, I mean, I at one time may have talked about wanting to be the president of a national advertising agency or something like that, but um, uh, I've worked in large agencies, I've worked in small agencies. Um, I like large agencies because you don't run into the same people all the time. Small agencies, you never can get away from the individuals, and and sometimes you really want to. But uh, I guess when I said I wanted to return my career to my hands and my head, it meant working by myself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who in the agency that you're seeing. I'll be the people that you think oh, it's great to see them again, great to work with them again. But then obviously on the flip side, there'll be people that you think, oh, do I have to see this person again while I'm still alive? And like you say, if it's a small agency, you can't really get around that. Well, obviously with a big one, you can jump around a fair bit. So my next question: would you rather have $500,000 a year for the rest of your life or $5 million a one-off payment, and why?
Um, as far as money is concerned, I have always felt that I want to make enough money so that I don't have to always be thinking about money. I don't have any particular goal in mind except that my wife and I have a comfortable living. I have raised with her 6 sons and had to support 8 people. And most of that time with just my income. Later, once the youngest one was finally going into school, she started working again. But I've been able to support the family, and now we're at a point where I've actually the only debt that I have is the mortgage on our house, and so I'm happy with where we're at, and still got to think about what happens if we need assisted living or something like that, and we're trying to figure out all that sort of thing financially. But I've never wanted to be a millionaire, and I've never wanted to. And if I was, I wouldn't live like I was a millionaire because both my wife and I would uh, feel like we needed to spend money on causes and people that are less fortunate.
What's your favorite movie, your favorite board game, and if you're into video games, favorite video game?
I actually listened to your talk with Margareta yesterday, so I knew the movie question was coming. And I have a really good answer for that one, and that is Bambi. My favorite movie of all times is Bambi. I saw it for the first time when I was 4 years old, and I talked about how 4 was an age when I decided to go into art directing. I don't know how much Bambi had influenced me on that, but um, the quality of handmade, hand drawn images is unsurpassed in that movie. Um, the opening scene in that movie has 11 different layers of images on glass where they move them at different speeds to give you that sense of what you get when you go down the road and you see things in the distance don't move as fast as the stuff in the front. Um, there was a guy that I knew when he was an older guy in New York, a fellow by the name of Keith Robinson, who, when he was 18, he was an animator with Disney on Bambi. And what he did on Bambi was he did the moving of the grass blowing in the wind, and he also did the antlers on Bambi's father as the uh, deer turned around, and all of those different positions of the antlers as the deer turned around had to be drawn. And he was the only guy that was there that was capable of doing that with the horns and making the grass in the field blowing in the wind look believable. So that's why Bambi is my favorite, because of the quality of the handwork that was done in it. I'm not much of a sports watcher. I will be watching much of the Olympics this summer, and we enjoy that sort of thing. I might watch the last game of the World Series. I didn't this year, um, and um, was in and out of the Super Bowl, um, uh, but didn't sit there and watch the whole game. I'm just not much of a sports fan.
That's fair enough. Neither am I. If I'm being honest, and Bambi is also one of my favorite movies as well. I've got a little story about the movie Bambi. When I was a kid, there was at some shopping center. Me and my older brother and my older sister and my mom as well. They had some sort of they had a competition on. You just had to put your name in. You didn't have to do anything, but you'd win a VHS tape of Bambi. Obviously, that was back when before DVDs, when VHS was a thing. And My sister, I was too young. I couldn't, fill the format. So my sister did hers, brother did his. They put theirs in. My mum said to them, "Do one for me." They said he's not going to win anyway. We're not going to do it. So my mum, you know, did it as best as she could. They didn't win. I ended up winning, and to this day, my mom still, rubs it in their face that they entered and they didn't win, and I won. And I've actually still got that, VHS as well at my parents' house. So I've got the DVD and Blu-ray since, but still got the original VHS.
I had the original Bambi comic book, and I had a large uh, comic book collection. And one time, my mother wanted to get rid of some of my comics, so we boxed up a bunch of comics to give to an orphanage. And accidentally, the Bambi one got put into that box, but I always treasured that Bambi comic book.
Oh, I didn't know Bambi. So is that what it originally was then? Like how
No,
obviously.
no, this was done as a result of the movie.
Okay.
They did frames of it that told the whole story, but it was based on the movie.
It was based on the movie. Okay. I mean, I'm definitely gonna have a Google of that and see what that looks like. Because again, I didn't realize they had done a comic, you know, for that. Was that popular at the time, the Bambi comic, or not really?
I don't know. I mean, I was 4 years old. I mean, I just I always got the cartoon uh, kind of comics, Dell comics, like and Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes and things like that, and but not into the graphic novel kind of superhero kind of comic books.
Yeah, of course not. And final question. It's a two-parter. Does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
Well, I think I answered that question. I think that I wanted to make enough money to not have to be thinking about money all the time. Um, I'm very happy. I am very blessed by the fact that my wife and I have a phenomenal love for each other. We have been married come August, it'll be 56 years. We have six sons. We have 13 grandkids. Uh, I love what I do and have always loved what I do as far as work is concerned. The fact that I can still work at 80 and still enjoy what I do and still have clients coming to me to do the work, I'm a very blessed man. And that's what real happiness is. It has nothing to do with money.
I love that as a way to, wrap up the podcast, Big Al. So, Big Al, I want to thank you for coming on today, sharing your, 60 plus year journey, and you're still going as well. So, appreciate you coming on, obviously taking the time for that and sharing your journey with the listeners.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to have done this with you. It was a lot of fun.
Of course, not a problem at all. And I want to finally thank the listeners for tuning in to this week's episode of FireDEV with Big Al Gruswitz. Stay tuned for next week's episode as well. See you there. Take care. Bye.